Section 4 of the American Postal Service, Second Edition. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Michelle Fry, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The American Postal Service, Second Edition by Louis Melius. Chapter 3, Department Operations, Part 2. The per capita cost in rural delivery. The per capita cost in the rural delivery service has been a matter of considerable interest to those who are following the progress and extension of this branch of the public service. The great advance which has been made in this service, and the still greater extent to which it is proposed to extend it, embracing ultimately all patrons wherever located, naturally raises the question of cost as a whole and the cost per patron. Charles Emery Smith, Postmaster General in 1900, who was one of the staunch friends of rural delivery in its early days, said the gross cost could be estimated by three methods: cost per square mile, cost per capita, and cost per county. Adhering to the subject in hand, it may be stated that he found the cost per capita at that time to be 92.7, serving a population of about 2 million people on something less than 3,000 routes. There is no reliable data covering the period to 1910 upon this subject, but taking an estimate based upon close calculation, it is found that notwithstanding the tremendous growth of this service during that time, reaching in 1910 to over 41,000 routes and accommodating over 20 million patrons, the cost per capita had arisen to only 1.797, and now, with nearly 43,000 routes and serving over 26 million people as patrons, the cost per capita is but 1.966. No answer as to cost considering the known value of such service could be illustrated more forcibly than by the figures here presented. If the undeniable benefits of rural service to the people can be given with ever-increasing efficiency at a cost no greater than that, it can be reasonably assumed that the people who live upon the farms of the United States and endure the hardships of such life with its many attendant inconveniences are certainly entitled to their share of public benefit, especially when, as shown, the cost is so small compared to the immeasurable advantages afforded. The city delivery service of the nation, with its 34,000 carriers, costs now over $43 million. No computation of cost per capita in this service has ever been made, and relative comparison cannot be given, but such figures as are available show that in 1911 the per capita cost of serving the people in the cities of the country was $1.40, and that in 1916 this cost had increased to $1.75. When the comparatively comfortable conditions under which city delivery is conducted is considered, and the proportionate difference in appropriation taken into account, it will appear that the excess of cost in the rural delivery is no greater than might naturally be expected from the peculiar nature of the service, the territory to be covered, and the almost insurmountable conditions with which it has to contend. Indeed, it is a matter of surprise that the cost of service per capita under the circumstances is so small. To keep down the public expense to so low a figure while extending this service to millions of people heretofore denied this privilege should be a matter of congratulations and encourage the hope, as well as assure the ultimate end towards which all rural delivery aims and activities are directed, viz., countrywide extension. Some necessary conditions of rural delivery. England, France, and Germany antedate us in the establishment of rural delivery, but the service there is bureaucratic, originating always with the post office officials and dominated by red tape requirements. Ours is democratic and cooperative. It is established upon petitions sent through representatives in Congress, irrespective of party affiliation. However, any application received from a postmaster or individual showing reasonable warrant for the establishment of a rural route in any community will be given careful consideration by the department. It is absolutely free, The only conditions the government makes in establishing and maintaining service is that those who desire to avail themselves of its beneficent provisions shall do their part towards rendering it of public advantage, viz., by mending their roads, building bridges over unbridged creeks and streams, see that the county commissioners give prompt attention to such needs, and provide themselves with suitable receiving boxes, conveniently placed along the roadside that the carrier can readily deposit and collect mail without alighting from his conveyance. Patrons can do much towards aiding the government in this matter, and they doubtless do their bit in a willing and accommodating spirit. Annual cost per patron and pieces handled in rural delivery service. A study of the annual cost per patron in the rural delivery service for the year 1916 shows that in the states of California and Utah and in the District of Columbia, it was less than $1 each. In the states of Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, New Jersey, North Carolina, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, Washington, and West Virginia, it was more than $1 and less than $2. In Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Vermont, Wisconsin, and Wyoming, it was more than $2 and less than $3. And in North and South Dakota, it was over $3 and less than $4. Annual cost of the service for patron decreased from $2,066 in 1915 to $1,966 in 1916. The annual cost per piece of mail handled on rural routes was lowest in the states of Arizona, California, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Utah, and the District of Columbia, and highest in Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi, North and South Carolina, and Tennessee. Annual cost per price handled was .0144 in 1915 and .0150 in 1916. The states which had the largest number of patrons served on rural routes, over 1 million in each, were Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Missouri, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Texas. The states which had less than 100,000 patrons served were Arizona, Delaware, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Utah, Wyoming, and the District of Columbia. Population and extension of rural service. Relative to the provision in the Act making appropriations for the rural service for the fiscal year 1917, that rural mail delivery shall be extended so as to serve as nearly as practicable the entire rural population of the United States, it should be stated that rural delivery service covered, at the end of the fiscal year 1916, 1,037,259 miles of roads, while Star Route service was operating upon 139,643 miles. It is estimated that there are 2,199,646 miles of public roads in the United States, so that there remains 1,022,753 miles of roads on which no mail service is in operation. At the end of the fiscal year 1916, an estimated population of 26,307,686 was served by rural routes, 520,000 by star routes, and approximately 10 million by fourth-class post offices. The total rural population in the United States is placed at 43,991,722. It will be seen, therefore, that while 83% of the rural population is receiving convenient mail service, 47% of the rural road mileage is uncovered. Speeding up the rural service by motor vehicle. This is a time of intense activity. Action is demanded everywhere, and "get there" is the cry of the day. Brevity and speed are in close fellowship in the business world, and competition spurs on towards the greatest possible endeavor in any direction where advantage lies. Expedients no longer serve. Only that which is best and in the highest degree efficient can hope to survive. The introduction of the motor car in transforming conditions and producing wonderful changes is characteristic of this pushing age. Time is money. The motor has demonstrated its value and dominates the field for all far-reaching enterprise. Businessmen recognize its tremendous possibilities and advantageous help in saving time and abridging distance. It spells efficiency in commercial life, and men strain a point to bring themselves up alongside their pushing and wide-awake neighbors in availing themselves of this great modern aid to the completest equipment. The farmer, realizing what can accomplish in his particular domain, has hastened to supply himself with what will contribute to his profit, and he finds in this great adjunct to energetic industrial life the means of increasing his business and enlarging his vision of opportunity and desire. Motor vehicle service is of course an innovation upon the 24-mile horse-drawn route, and as any innovation upon old established custom may expect to meet objection in the administration of public affairs, especially when such an innovation contemplates a readjustment of routes and a possible reduction of carriers. Objection was raised in some quarters, but the desire to secure all the benefit which the parcel post could give by the opportunity afforded by zone extension was a determining factor in the case, and the Postmaster General, availing himself of the power vested in him by act of Congress, ordered its establishment, due regard being had to the limitations and conditions under which it could be operated. Experience has justified the wisdom of such action. Motor vehicles were accordingly introduced into the rural service in 1915 to meet this demand for greater expedition in service and the transportation of increased amounts of parcel post and mail matter on extended routes, and principally from the larger cities. These routes must, however, be 50 miles in length, and the compensation is fixed at not more than $1,800 per annum, the carriers to furnish and maintain their own motor vehicles. On June 30th, 1916, 500 of such routes were in operation with a total length of 26,878 miles, averaging 53.756 miles per route, with an annual cost of $877,824, or an average of $1,755.65 per route. These motor routes superseded horse-drawn vehicle service, formerly costing $1,093,106 a year, or an annual saving of $515,284. Motor routes are of especial benefit in sections where railroad facilities are lacking. The greater distance covered by motor routes makes it possible for a much larger number of persons in given localities to communicate with one another on the same day, eliminating the necessity for taking the mail to post offices for redispatch, and in some instances transshipment over one or more railroads. Better facilities are also afforded for transportation of products of the farm. Indianapolis, Indiana, is a conspicuous example of the efficiency of this service in reducing postage. A 20-pound package mailed on a rural route from one office in Marion County, addressed to a patron of a rural route on another, which would have cost 24 cents, can now be carried for 15 cents, and a 50-pound package from one point to another, the cost of which would have been 54 cents, will now cost but 30 cents. Village delivery. In furtherance of the desire of the government to do everything in its power to oblige and accommodate the people of the country, and enlarge every privilege which could advance their interests or provide for their comfort, the question of the extension of village delivery, for which there has been considerable demand, but which has heretofore received little encouragement, was taken up with a view of securing such action from Congress as would allow further extensions to be made, the original appropriation being too limited for the purpose. Between the very great facilities afforded dwellers in the cities and the almost equally great accommodation shown to those in the rural sections, village delivery was but imperfectly considered, and the benefits and advantage which a more direct attention to these needs could be secured was allowed to remain in abeyance, or at least not given the attention it deserved. But the claim of the residents of small towns to equal privileges with more favored localities was at length recognized, and village delivery, which was established to put into operation in 1912, was extended until 280 of such towns now have this accommodation, employing 400 carriers. The entrance salary paid village delivery carriers is at a rate of $600 per annum and increased to $690 per annum after 12 months of satisfactory service. Only communities where the annual post office receipts amount to $5,000 are entitled to this service. Carriers appointed at third-class offices are not subject to civil service rules, as such offices are not classified. When the receipts amount to $8,000 per annum, the office is advanced to second class, and the village directory carriers are given a civil service status. City delivery. In 1864, the number of city delivery offices was 66, number of carriers 685, cost of service 1864, $317,063.20. In 1916, the number of offices was 1,864, number of carriers 34,114, and the cost of service $43,136,818. Average annual salaries of carriers for the past 4 years has increased from $1,080.22 to $1,115.46. Carriers enter the service at a salary of $800 per annum and are promoted annually on their service record through the various grades until they reach the salary of $1,100 at first-class offices and $1,000 at offices of the second class, after which promotion depends upon their exceptional efficiency. Star routes. June 30th, 1916, the number of star routes was 11,187, length in miles 147,167, average cost per mile of length of routes $54.16, per mile of travel 10.26 cents. In the renewal of contracts on certain routes in the western states under new form of advertisement, there was a reduction in the cost of operation of $130,000. Star routes are so called because originally a star appeared on the advertisements for contract bidding to distinguish them from other contracts, and because of the words, "with due celerity, certainty, and security," which appeared in connection with such contract service. The purpose of star route service is to serve post offices off the line of railroad travel, and incidentally such families as may live between those post offices, who erect boxes or hang out satchels to receive their mail, also to collect mail where proper provision has been made for this purpose. No bid submitted under an advertisement for star route service will be considered unless the bidder shall agree in his bid that in the event of the contract being awarded to him, he will reside on or contiguous to the route and give his personal supervision to the performance of the service. Postal savings. The postal savings system was inaugurated January 3, 1911. In June 1916, the number of depositors was 602,937, and the balance to the credit of depositors was $86,019,885. The denominations of postal notes or certificates are $5, $10, $20, $50, and $100, and they may be purchased at any postal depository. The interest allowed by the government is 2%. These deposits may be exchanged in amounts of $20 and multiples thereof for 2.5% U.S. postal savings, registered or coupon bonds. Postal certificates are made at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Money order system. Dr. Charles F. McDonald, who had been greatly interested and had taken an active part in the establishment of the money order system, was, upon its inauguration in May, 1864, appointed as superintendent. He is often called the father of the money order system, and doubtless with some considerable justice. He labored untiringly to make it a success, and upon his death in 1902, it was found that he had bequeathed $2,000 to the United States to be used by the Postmaster General in the improvement of that service, and Congress, by act of October 22, 1913, accepted the gift, and the commission appointed by the Postmaster General in furtherance of the act recommended that a vignette of Dr. McDonald be placed on the money order draft forms. This recommendation was approved by the Postmaster General and carried into effect. Orders issued: 1916, $121,636,818. Amount: $719,364,950.46. Orders paid and repaid. Number: 122,379,113. Amount: $720,584,719.58. Net money order revenue for 1916, $6,821,499.75. Stamp books. The need for some convenient way of handling postage stamps when more were purchased than immediately required, and which need was long felt and operated as a bar against the purchase of stamps in any considerable quantity for occasional use, led the Honorable Edwin C. Madden, Third Assistant Postmaster General, to consider some method of remedying this lack, and on March 26, 1900, after considerable experiment with paper of various kinds to suit the purpose, devised the stamp book now in use, of which millions of copies are annually sold. In 1916, the department issued 28,005,930 of these books, and the demand for them is constantly increasing. These books are made of 6 different kinds: books containing 24 and 96 stamps of the 1-cent denomination, 12, 24, and 48 of the 2-cent denomination, and a book containing both 1-cent and 2-cent stamps, viz., 24 1-cent and 24 2-cent. In this connection, it may be but just to divide the credit of the origin of the stamp book with Captain Bain of the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, who, it is said, had the project in mind for some time previous to its inauguration as a public accommodation. Mr. Madden is usually given the credit, but, as stated, the credit may perhaps be fairly divided, as it is understood that both these gentlemen collaborated in the perfection of the project. End of section 4.